Nanjing, I feel like it's my second home. I got lots set up there. I'm very used to living there. I got my family there, my wife's family, and my business is located there. It feels like going home when I go to Nanjing.
So you've been speaking Chinese for 20 years?
I've been speaking Chinese a bit for even longer than that because, when I was in high school and I first started it, then I was 15 and I'm 42 now.
What was that experience like for you when you first arrived in China? Was there some culture shock you had to work through?
One of the biggest differences between China and Canada that people will notice right away is that there's just people everywhere. They stand close to you. Us Canadians don't really do that. The special thing about China is that people that haven't been there will have opinions about it that are often based just on misinformation. There's a lot of China haters out there.
What are some misconceptions about China that you hear in Canada?
Some misconceptions.
And you seem like a very interesting guy. I think I was just scrolling through Instagram and I saw one of your videos talking about kind of like a news story in China or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I went to, I think it was your website or something, and saw that you were Canadian. And I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
A Canadian with a connection to China. I wonder how this happened. So that's kind of my main question. But why don't we take it back to like your origin story? Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Sure. Okay. So I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So for listeners that don't know Canada, that's like on the west side. It's in the prairies and it's close to the mountains. Edmonton is a city of about 1 million people. And then I grew up here. I didn't really travel anywhere. I studied Chinese in high school and I studied business in university. And then I got the opportunity to do a term abroad program. So I went to China. And that fits right in with my business education because it's international business and you're supposed to have an area of specialization. So that fit right in. And I kind of Jimmy rigged this term abroad program by going through University of Calgary, even though I was in University of Alberta. Went over to China, stayed there for a few months, and I met my wife. Well, she wasn't my wife then, but I met her right away. It was probably within a few weeks or at least a month of getting there. And then she's the reason that I kept going back. I kept going back even during university. And then I moved back to China after then. And when I moved to China, I did some English teaching. I ran a travel startup. And after a while, then I also started a business called Nanjing Marketing Group that does marketing services in Chinese for Western companies. And that's the business I've run for a long time. This has already been over 15 years. And we lived in China for a lot of the time. I spent about 10 years in China in total. But for a while there, I was mostly in China and I'd also travel back to Canada. And then once our kids started going to school, then we moved to Canada. And that's when we started mostly living in Canada and just traveling over to China sometimes.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, this is getting pretty close to home for me because I'm from Calgary originally. So
okay, Calgary. Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of neighbors. I went to U of C as well. So it kind of seems like you knew what you wanted to do right from the beginning. I mean, you studied Chinese, you studied business, and now you have a business in China. Is it as simple as that, or?
Kind of. I didn't really think I knew what I was doing the whole time. When I was studying Chinese in high school, that was just because I wanted to study a language and I wanted to keep my opportunities open. So I wanted to study a language that was quite different from English. And I didn't have any plan of going to China then. Even when they suggested going to China, I thought, oh, that sounds kind of crazy. That's really far away. But once I got into school, then I started looking for, I started looking for programs to study abroad. China wasn't the only option. I was looking at other places too, but China is the one that I ended up doing. So maybe I was going on some kind of instinct on a certain path the whole time, but I didn't really know, I wasn't really committed to it.
Mm-hmm. Taking Chinese at a high school level, is that a common thing to do? I mean, it doesn't seem like that would be a commonly studied language in Edmonton.
Yeah. So I have heard that Edmonton has the biggest Chinese bilingual program in North America. I'm not sure if that is accurate or not. That's just something that I've heard. But yeah, there are a bunch of schools that offer it. Mine wasn't a bilingual program. I was just in a class. It's just one class in school. Okay, but there are a lot of schools that offer Chinese as a full like bilingual program here in Edmonton too. I think there's like 11 or 12 on board now, and like my kids, they're doing Chinese bilingual all the way from grade 1 to grade 12.
Well, I think that's a good thing because it actually represents the population that we have, right? Like, you know, when you meet people internationally and they're like, oh, you're from Canada? Well, you got to speak French then. I'm sure you speak French. And they don't understand that Edmonton and Calgary, Alberta in general, the West is so far away from a lot of French-speaking communities in Canada that we're a little bit disconnected from that. But we have lots of different languages spoken in Alberta, Mandarin being one of them, Tagalog, another very popular language. That's the route that I went. But in academic environments, I mean, maybe I don't know if this is true for every school, but it seems like they do focus on, you know, learning French or learning, you know, maybe Spanish or something like that. But we have all of these other languages spoken from the communities that live here, that it would make sense to learn that. I mean, if speaking Mandarin in Canada would be a very useful language to know, just like Tagalog would be, just like Punjabi would be, right? And so it's cool that schools are also offering that. Then you can actually connect with people that you're living nearby, right?
Right, yeah. Well, you know, in elementary school, I took French too, but I found it really boring. And I think the reason is like the way that I studied it. When I was learning French in elementary school, it was just like, I remember just like remembering words and like things that are around the classroom and such, and I never used it. When I studied Chinese, I actually started practicing it. I had a different attitude towards it, and that really helped a lot. So I used it in communication. Like, I would practice it with classmates in school. Then later on, I got language exchange partners too. I practiced with them, and it was just like so much more entertaining to actually try to use it to speak to people rather than to try to use it to like do tests and write stuff down, you know?
If you can see it as a tool for communication rather than an academic exercise, you're going to have more motivation to use it, just like full stop. Did you have other options of different languages you could have studied?
In high school, I think there was Ukrainian offered as well.
Okay.
And of course there was French too. So Chinese was the one that I wanted to do. If I didn't study Chinese, it would have been something else unusual or very different, like maybe like Arabic would have been cool, or Japanese, Korean. Yeah, but I probably would not have been as interested in studying something more similar to English, like French or Spanish, for example.
So you could take, the options were French, Ukrainian, or Mandarin Chinese. Those are pretty varied.
Yeah, as I recall, that's what it was. There's a lot of Ukrainian people in the neighborhood and around in Edmonton. Okay. Like not only in Edmonton, but in the specific part of Edmonton where I was, there was a lot of Ukrainian people there. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense too. And then for people that don't know, like the kind of Chinese is Mandarin Chinese. That's the spoken dialect. But the way it's written, it is written in simplified Chinese script, which is the same for all the Chinese dialects, or lots of different, like the main Chinese dialects, at least. They're all written with the same script. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So like Chinese languages use characters as a writing system instead of an alphabet. And so that remains the same, even if the language changes. But in terms of like practical use, it's a different language. And so the pronunciation would be different, even if the character remains the same. Is that how it works?
Yes. Yeah, pretty much that's it. And then, they'll have their own sayings that they have in certain languages, dialects. I mean, you'd call them different Chinese dialects. They have their own ways of saying the things, their own expressions as well. But a lot of the time, they're going to be able to communicate with the same simplified Chinese, because there's two Chinese scripts. There's simplified, and then there's traditional. And it used to be everyone used traditional. But then in mainland China, they made it so everybody needed to learn simplified, right? So now in Canada, like you might see simplified or traditional scripts on the sides of, like in Chinatown or somewhere like that. You might see both of the scripts.
So like, does that mean that you could communicate with someone in the written language no matter what Chinese language they spoke? If they were using, let's say, simplified characters?
If they were using simplified, yeah. There would only be some things that they don't understand, like certain expressions that they don't understand, because there's a difference between expressions used in different places. But also there's, nowadays there's the rise of like NetSpeak, just people using their own expressions online. So it's kind of like, how I was asking my daughter to explain to me what skippity means, and like these these like Gen Z or Gen 8 talk. I try to figure those out. It's kind of like that. They're going to have their own expressions in Chinese too, that a 15-year-old Chinese person might know it and use it often online, but a 60-year-old person wouldn't know it.
That's interesting, because I've often thought about the difference between a character system and an alphabet system. And it seems like the character system is just like objectively more complicated and probably harder to learn for people that are learning it as kids or as adults for a foreign language. But I guess that's an advantage that I hadn't considered, that the characters do become a unifying written language, for multiple different languages for different groups of people. Because like we have that to a certain degree with our alphabet that we use in English. Like, it's the Latin alphabet. We can read, you could read Spanish, like technically, right?
Yeah.
But you would have no idea what the words mean. So you would lose that.
Well, I can pick up some. Like we translated some of our websites into Spanish recently, and I was just impressed that I'm able to read some of it, because especially some of the longer words, they look the same in Spanish as they do in English, or similar,
But I guess I mean that even though it's the same, that has to do with the similarity of the languages, not the writing system per se. They also use the same alphabet other than a few tonal marks in Vietnamese. And you'd have no idea what those ones are, right? And even though it's the same alphabet, maybe that's a better example, because those languages are more different from each other, grammatically speaking.
You said you speak Tagalog? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Tagalog or Filipino. Mm-hmm.
Tagalog. I'm not saying it right, but it's from the Philippines, and is it written with an alphabet or? Yeah.
Okay. It's a Latin alphabet as well. It's also very phonetic, and so when you read it, you kind of know how it's going to be pronounced as well, which is a challenge with characters in Chinese, right? Because you could know a character but not necessarily know how it's pronounced or what the tones are or any of that stuff, right?
Yeah, so the two things have to be learned separately sometimes, or sometimes there are words that I will know in spoken Chinese, but I haven't seen it written, so I don't know that part yet. Yeah.
Right. So when you ended up doing the exchange in China, how was your level in Mandarin at that point?
Well, at that point, so I went through high school, and I learned some things, and I really got into it, and I practiced it a bit, but I would forget because there's a big gap between like one semester and another. Okay. So then after high school, I went into university, and something kind of bad happened for my studies at that point, or maybe it's good. I don't know. They had no idea where to put us, like high school graduates, into the Chinese course. So I was put into third year Chinese in university, which was way too hard for me. They put another one of my classmates in second year. They put another one in first year. So like they had no idea where to put us. Probably second year would have been the best, but third year was way too hard for me, and I really had to study hard. And I could have just asked them to put me in second year, but I didn't because I'm stubborn or something. I don't know. But that was really hard for me. And what I did then is I started getting language exchange partners. So I would meet them. I don't remember where I found them. I guess I found them online or something. And just like new immigrants to Canada, I had a couple of them that I would talk to. We just meet up and practice talking. So I was able to have some conversations about various things. Then when I got to China, I realized that I needed to learn how to discuss new topics to be able to get around, because my speaking was quite basic then. It was quite basic. Like when I first got into China, I remember one of the first things I had to use Chinese for was ordering food. And they had a whole bunch of, it was like a restaurant where you pick what you want, right? You just point. I just pointed. I didn't know what things were, but I didn't know words like pork and chicken. So I needed to learn that kind of stuff. And then I did practice speaking a lot when I was in China. That was like pretty much my main goal. I was talking to a lot of Chinese people. I wasn't hanging out with the foreigners all the time, even though I was in a foreign dorm. That just helped me build up my Chinese way faster. And it's definitely my wife that helped me the most, for sure.
And where did you go in China?
Nanjing.
Nanjing, okay.
So Nanjing is, at the time, it was like a 4-hour drive from Shanghai to Nanjing, okay? And now it's like a 80-minute train ride. It's a big city. I don't know how many people are exactly there because when I first went there, I looked it up and Wikipedia or something said there was about 8 million people in Nanjing, and it's gotten a lot bigger. But when I look up the data, it still says it's like 8 million people. So I wonder if, if that's correct or not. But it's a big city. There's lots going on there. There's lots of subways, lots of buildings, all sorts of stuff. And it's a historical city for China too. It's the southern capital of China. That's what it means.
The southern capital.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it like an official capital?
Well, it's not a capital of China now, but it was the capital of China. Because Beijing, right? So Beijing is north, Jing capital, and Nanjing is south capital.
Do they have like provincial capitals as well in China? Like how Edmonton is the capital of Alberta?
Yeah. So Nanjing is the capital of the province there, capital of Jiangsu province.
Okay. You mentioned that you were staying in like kind of an international dorm, and it reminded me of when I did an exchange in Germany. I just did like a summer program, so I was there for a month, and we stayed in a dorm all together as well. And there are lots of pros and cons that come with that. It was great to arrive and have people from the same class be my neighbors, and I made lots of great friends doing that. And there was some comfort, I guess, with living with other people that spoke English. But at the same time, it does immediately put you in an international bubble. It's like I'm hanging out with Americans and Brits and Canadians, and we're walking to university together to the class. We do the class, and then we're walking home together. And then, hey, you guys want to get some lunch? Go and have food together. And so there was a real temptation to not really interact with a lot of German people or even practice the German language that we were supposed to be learning. It took some effort. And so you mentioned that for you did apply yourself to interact with local people. How did you do that? How did you accomplish that?
So sometimes I would just spend a little time talking to people on the street, like random people or the people that that were at a store or wherever. Like I was just being chatty with them, and they are pretty open to talking to foreigners. I think especially back then, foreigners were probably even more rare back then. So I did that. And then there were other people that we met. Somehow the university or the foreign students area attracts Chinese people that are interested in talking to foreigners. So there are people that want to practice their English or something. And then also I looked for a language exchange partner like I did before in Canada. But they had a program for setting you up with people like that, but they didn't find one for me. So I made my own language exchange partners because I had been talking to some people on ICQ before. That's a messenger from back in the day. And so one of the people was the one who's my wife now. And then there was at least one other person that I met from ICQ as well, just like saying, hey, do you want to be my language exchange partner? And then, met up with her.
Yeah, that makes a big difference, having someone to talk to that's a local. They can also kind of show you around too, right? If you were talking to people before. So your wife was from Nanjing as well?
She's from Nanjing, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So you were talking to her even before you arrived?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because on ICQ. Do you know what ICQ is?
No.
Okay, so you're a bit too young for that. But it was like one of the original messengers that lots of people used online on their computer. This is even before smartphones and stuff. So
I think the first messenger I used was MSN Messenger.
oh
That was
yeah,
the first one.
it's like that. It's like that. So I went on ICQ. I was practicing typing in Chinese, chatting with people, right? And I found everybody in Nanjing that it would show me. Like I just did a search for Nanjing and it showed like 50 people, right? And I messaged all 50 of them. and none of the males responded to me, not one of them. And like 20 females responded to me. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then I don't remember this, but my wife told me that she sent me a photo of herself, but it wasn't her. It was just like the ugliest person. She said it was the ugliest person she could find. Like the funniest looking photo. I don't even know what the photo looked like. I don't know if it's ugly or just silly or what, but it was not her. It was somebody else. Because I guess she was like testing if I was trying to learn language or if I was trying to hook up with girls. I wasn't trying to hook up with girls at that time.
It's like the reverse catfish. It's like the opposite of a catfish.
Yeah. So I was talking to her and I was chatting with a bunch of people on there. And then when I actually got to Nanjing, then I reached out to some of them and yeah, I did meet a couple of them.
Yeah, that's a cool way of doing it. My fiance is from Colombia and I met her through a language exchange app online. Okay. So yeah. I was just here in Canada. She was in Colombia. I had never been to Colombia. She had never been here. And I was trying to practice my Spanish and she was practicing her English. And there was, I think, some of the similar kind of, like temptations on there where some people would use it for other reasons, not just for language learning, but they're trying to meet people. Right. And that wasn't my motivation or, my fiance, not at that time, but it wasn't her motivation either. But yeah, I just went on there and was talking to a bunch of different people trying to practice my Spanish. And if you're an English native speaker on an app like that, there are a lot of people in the world that want to learn English and a lot of Spanish speakers as well. So my inbox was flooded with messages, just like people wanting to chat with me. And then pretty soon I was only talking to, this one girl. And, and then, things kind of escalated from there. I moved to Colombia and that's where we met for the first time in person. So it's, kind of almost a similar vibe to what your guys' case was. How soon after you arrived did you start dating?
Well, like we weren't dating at first. We were doing the language exchange thing first, but she's going to kick me for not remembering exactly, but I think it was like 2 weeks after I got there.
Okay. Really soon then.
Yeah.
So then your relationship, was it in Mandarin right from the beginning or were you guys speaking English as well?
We would practice using both of them. But then when we were actually dating and like it became more important to be able to communicate easily with each other. So our goal wasn't just language learning, but it was more like we need to be able to actually talk to each other efficiently. We used our own system. So we used the Chinese language as a base and we would use a lot of English words in it and then charades as well. Because Chinese, the grammar is quite logical and easy to understand. It's a lot easier than English. So it was the right one for us to use as that base. But she'd also spent more time learning words and learning like English writing and such. So she had a larger vocabulary than I did. So we combined those two together. And then when we really didn't know how to say something, then we just like used hand motions, body motions to try and get the thing across. So it was like our own language. It's just a mixture of those things. Kind
of like code switching a little bit. They do that a lot in the Philippines where they mix Tagalog and English together, and other countries as well, right? You see that with Hindi a lot in India, mixing them like in one sentence could have words half and half almost. Can you give me like an example of what that would sound like?
Yeah. Okay. So it'd be like, see the poster on my or this art on the back. I'd say something like, "这个 monkey poster 是我老婆买给我的," right? So I inserted an English word into there, right? If I didn't know the word for it, I would have said monkey poster and just put it in there to the rest of the sentence. But I was saying that like my wife bought me this monkey poster.
I see. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's really, that is really how people speak in a lot of places in the Philippines. Because there are a lot of words that don't have translations. Like, I think, I'm sure in Mandarin there's a translation for everything, but there are other languages too, like in Filipino, that they just don't have certain words in the language, like cell phone.
Oh, okay.
There isn't like a translation for cell phone, so you would just
Right.
say cell phone,
Yeah.
or you would say mall, or you would say whatever, computer or something like that. And then there are also words that might have a translation, but people tend to use them in English as well. Like, there's a word for house, but sometimes people will say house in English as opposed to saying, bahay, which is the Tagalog word. And so the system that you guys came up with sounds a lot like Taglish in the Philippines, but just in the Chinese version.
Yeah.
And what's your guys' like home language now? What do you use with each other?
We use English, even though we try to use Chinese more, but we end up falling into English. The reason that we would like to use Chinese more is to help the kids learn Chinese, but it just feels more natural to speak English because the kids will speak English much better than they speak Chinese.
And you're living in an English-speaking country as well, so that's probably a little bit easier in that way. More exposure through English.
Yeah, if it's just my wife and me, the two of us, then we'll often speak Chinese too.
Okay.
But we don't have to do the thing where we mix the two languages. We can go totally into one or totally into the other, and it's just fine.
I think that's like important for a relationship as well. I think like when you're speaking your native language, you are offering a piece of your personality that is like authentically you. And most people can express themselves better in that way than they could in another language. And so even having the comprehension, like the listening comprehension, to be able to understand the native language of your partner, I think is important, like relationally. Of course, there are lots of people that have partners from other countries and they don't speak the language, and that's fine. They make it work. But there is something really rich about learning that language and being able to understand that person, I think, in like a new depth.
Yeah, totally. There's that process of learning language together is really great. And I often recommend it to other people too. They ask me like how to learn Chinese. And I say like, oh, go get a Chinese girlfriend or a Chinese boyfriend. And it's like,
easy way to get a lot of motivation.
I'm kind of joking because not everybody, that's not practical for everybody. Maybe they don't want to do that. But I mean, if it's available to you, it is a great way to learn a language. Or even get yourself into a situation where you really like have to work hard to try to communicate with somebody else, right? Like, I don't know, it could be a close friend or work or something like that.
Though I think that people find themselves in those situations sometimes and still don't learn the language. Like, I think you need to be the kind of person, not the kind of person, but you need to have the right kind of motivation where you will like put yourself in that situation and actually try. Because you could be in that situation and not really want to learn, and you just won't. Like, there are people that have a partner from another country, and even if the other person doesn't speak English super well, they'll just default to that and not learn the other one. And from the outside, it's like, wouldn't your life be easier if you just learned that language? But that isn't enough motivation. There needs to be something more. Maybe it's more intrinsic than extrinsic. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you have to try really hard.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a marathon for sure, not a sprint.
I was just in Japan recently, and I got the chance to experience that, like the environment of not knowing the language. So that was pretty fun. Although they do have signs in English, and they do use Chinese characters in Japanese as well sometimes. So I was able to read some of it, but it was cool to be like in that environment where stuff is so mysterious to me. I started learning just a little bit about the Japanese writing and stuff. Learned how to read the word for sushi, just like little things like that. I find it to be very fun, but it's also really impractical at that time. Like you can't really do much. When you first start learning a language, it feels really tough because you're not getting very far. You can't have a conversation at the beginning.
Yeah, there's kind of a basic threshold that you have to meet before you can really dive into the language and actually have, day-to-day conversations. I mean, learning languages, I love it. It is fascinating to me, and I like cultures as well. But at the beginning, like you said, it can be a little bit overwhelming. What was that experience like for you when you first arrived in China? Was there some culture shock you had to work through?
Yeah, culture shock. A few things. So one of the biggest differences between China and Canada that people will notice right away is that there's just people everywhere. Like, I'm talking about the big cities, anyways. Just the density of people. They're all over the place, and they stand close to you. Us Canadians don't really do that. And the streets are busy, subways, buses are busy. Everything's busy. So I find that to be a bit shocking. Even my recent trip to China, which was just like a month and a half ago. I went to Japan and China both in July, right, with my family. And I was experiencing that again, where it's just like, oh, wow, it's just like so packed. Another thing is heat. Canadians, they go anywhere and they say it's hot, but it is actually hot in Nanjing. It's called one of the furnaces of China. That wasn't my first experience there because I went during the winter time, but other times, yeah, that's what it was like. And then the language, of course, that's a shock, not being able to read and understand a lot of things. Let's see, what else could I think of? The food might be a shock to some people. I was fine with the food. I like Chinese food a lot, and I like the food that I ate there, and I didn't really get sick. But so many other students in the foreign students dorm were having diarrhea. They were getting in trouble. Maybe it's the places they chose to eat at or something. But no, I was fine with that.
Does Nanjing have a particular dish that they specialize in?
Yeah, they have a bunch of different dishes that they specialize in. So they're duck. So they have a salty duck. No, is a saltwater duck they have, and that's pretty famous. I think it's pretty good. But there's a lot of different duck dishes that they have. So there's like duck neck and duck head and these different things. So I like the duck neck, the duck head. No, I'm not really into that one. But they have a lot of different dishes there too, that you can get in the tourist areas or in certain restaurants. It's part of the Huayang Cai, so the like Huayang style Chinese food. There's several different styles of Chinese food within China, and that's like the big umbrella over Nanjing and that area. So it's not super spicy usually. Can be, but it's not like spicy all the time, Yeah, it's I don't know how to describe it, but they have their own things there.
I mean,
and then they have
internationally.
I was going to say, then they have the other styles of Chinese food there too. I mean, like if you like Sichuan style, Szechuan, we call it in English, like they'll have that in Nanjing too. They'll have food from all over China, and they'll have food from other places in the world too.
Okay, so like anywhere you go in China, would you be able to find some dish from all of the umbrellas, but they have a one that they specialize in that would be like the best from where it's from?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't get all the stuff. Like, okay, so like if you really want to get the authentic style of a certain place, you go to that place, right? But on the other hand, there's going to be, those styles of food are going to be spread all over in China, and there's going to be certain types of Chinese restaurants that have those food in all the big cities.
Yeah, like internationally speaking, everybody knows Chinese food, right? Like even places that have not a lot of diversity will have a Chinese restaurant, right? It seems like it's internationally very well accepted. There's also a stereotype internationally that Chinese people will eat things that the rest of the world doesn't want to eat. Is that true in your experience?
Not all the time. I mean, I just made a video recently with me eating duck head and some other things, and I posted it online in Chinese, and there's a lot of comments on there from other Chinese people saying like, yeah, I don't want the duck head. That's gross. But
too much.
Yeah, they don't like it, but some people do. And they will have foods that, okay, I'll give you an example. Like I had a family member had a big party for, I think it was like his 20th birthday or something, and we all went, and one of the dishes that they had was snake. And snake is not something that they usually eat. It was just like a special dish for this occasion. And I had some of the snake, and I thought it was all right. I could eat it. It was edible for me. Most of them didn't want any of it, or they just tried a little bit and didn't have any more. And I was the one that took all the steak. I keep saying steak.
Steak.
I was the one that took all the snake leftovers back home, like 4 boxes of leftovers home. And I ate that for the next week for like lunch and supper. I ate all the snake. And it's fine. It's not really an unusual meat. It's okay. It's just kind of weird. Like, it looks weird, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it's even weird for a lot of Chinese people, is what you're saying. They were a little bit unsure about if they wanted to try it or not.
But they have like a huge variety of food there. It's just, and they're really into it. They're really into it. Like big restaurants. They present the food carefully. The service in those restaurants is usually quite good. I mean, in a tiny little restaurant, maybe it's not. It's just, they just like give you your food and that's it. But if you go to a big restaurant, like the server will pay a lot of attention to you. They'll help you order the whole thing, right? It's not like here in Edmonton where they just like give you the menu and they come back later and they ask you to order. And if you're not ready, they're, oh, okay, I'll come back. It's not like that. It's like they stand there with you and advise you on the food and talk to you as you order it and make sure that you get what is just right for you.
I mean, that's handy because it seems like the menus at like authentic Chinese restaurants are also huge. Like they got 1 million dishes they can make.
Yeah, they got a lot. Yeah.
Like I remember going to like dim sum places, specifically, and tons and tons and tons of options, and it's intimidating because it's like, I don't know what to order. Luckily, we were with people that knew the menu or knew the food, and so then they could help us as well, I guess. And maybe that's why the servers didn't really help us in those environments, because we already had someone that like knew the food, and then they would just like, try this, it'll be good. And I was like, great. But if I was on my own, I would have to definitely ask for help. Is there good Chinese food in Edmonton? I mean, you know what the authentic stuff is now. Did going to China ruin it for you, or can you still find it internationally?
No, I can still find it internationally. And even my wife, she likes food in Edmonton too. And she's also gotten used to the Canadian style Chinese food as well. So we will eat like Chinese style Chinese food, and we'll also eat the Canadian style Chinese food.
What's the difference?
So the Canadian style uses, like, there are various breaded products. Say something like lemon chicken. It has a bread on the outside. Now maybe that's Chinese style too. I don't know, but it's like, I consider it to be a Canadian one, and I never saw something like that, just like that in Nanjing.
Okay. Anything with bread? Like, what about the deep fried things with bread? Do they do that?
Yeah,
in
no,
China?
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's like
Okay.
kind of like breaded on the outside and then fried. That's something you see a lot in the Canadian style Chinese food. Like an example of a good, well, I guess it's American style, but there's this place called P.F. Chang's. Do you know it?
I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that.
And that they do all the Chinese food like in a style that I would say is American or Canadian. Like they serve you individual dishes, for example. There's less bones in it. Like in Chinese food, there's often going to be bones or other things that you have to chew around. And us Westerners, we're used to that when we're talking about like chicken wings, right? But we're not used to that when we're talking about like chicken feet or like the other chunks of a chicken that have bones in it. You have to eat around it carefully.
That was a big thing that I noticed when I was in Colombia for those months, is that they leave the bone in a lot of the meat that they eat, especially chicken. And like you said, we're used to it in certain environments, right? A drumstick or a chicken wing or whatever. But they would have it like a piece of chicken in a bowl of soup, and it would have the bone in it. And like, we would never do that in Canada, right? Like if you're eating soup, you're not looking for bones, you're just eating soup. And there were lots of examples like that where I was like, oh, this is different, very different. I think another difference is that in Canada, because we don't like bones, we use more like chicken breast, for example, different cuts of meat, where in Colombia, the bone-in is more desirable. My fiance said that it's also more affordable for the average person too. It's cheaper to do it that way. And some people say that it has more flavor if you leave the bone in, right? And so I think in some ways, maybe we're a bit of an anomaly in Canada that we don't like having bones in our food.
Yeah.
something that I heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, is that like in Canada, a big quote unquote Chinese dish is ginger beef, right? Like we love ginger beef. And I heard that that's actually originally from Alberta. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Okay.
because I think even in the States, if you say ginger beef, people might not know it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see that in China.
Yeah, and that's it feels like a staple here of like Canadian Chinese, I suppose.
Another thing about the food that we get in Canada, the Chinese food, a lot of it is from Guangdong province. It's Cantonese. So it's kind of like that was the main route for the Chinese food in Canada, is coming from Canton first and then getting Canadianized.
Okay.
And like sometimes I like the Cantonese food that we get here in Canada a lot. Like I like to go to a place called Jumbo Dim Sum in Edmonton, and it's Cantonese style. And there's some things I'm just used to, like they have the red vinegar that I like, right? Whereas we got Cantonese food in Nanjing, and they like made it more into their style. So they didn't have the red vinegar, little things like that. You know, they had the black vinegar from Yangzhou, which is also a really famous kind of vinegar that lots of people love. But I just felt like I like the red vinegar that I'm used to having with Cantonese food.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that there was like a specific style of Chinese food that is more popular in Canada. I've never been to China, and so I don't know those like nuances. But yeah, I would love to go. And through this podcast, I've talked to quite a few people now that have spent time in China, moving from different countries, and it always kind of like fascinates me. Let's take it back to your study abroad that you were doing. How long were you there on that first trip?
4 months.
4 months. Okay, so quite a bit of time. And after those 4 months, how were you feeling in terms of the culture shock, in terms of the language, all of that stuff?
Well, it got really different over the 4 months, because when I got there, I barely, I was having a hard time talking or doing much, but I practiced a lot while I was there. And then there was also SARS, the virus that came out.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like, it was more of a scare. It didn't become a huge pandemic, but it was more of a scare, and the people that we were with got spooked. And then the people that were organizing our group from back in University of Calgary, they asked that people go home. They booked plane tickets for us and stuff. I actually called the airline myself. I rebooked my plane ticket myself. So I changed it. I just didn't go back with them. So I stayed for an additional month. And then I got my own little apartment, which was like basically like a concrete cube on the first floor of a building. And it was really, it was like the worst apartment I ever had. But for that month, all I did was like hang around. I would hang out with my wife in the evening. Like after she got out of school, I would hang out with her into the evening until she went home. And then I would go to an internet cafe, and I would play video games or whatever, with tons of just Chinese men there, and me playing video games until like 5 a.m. or something, and then finally go to sleep. So it was, I was learning a lot, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you were living there. I mean, you did the transition between studying abroad and living in another country. Like when you go through a university, they offer a certain amount of structure, right? Like the dorm that you were staying in, the international dorm, and you have something to do every day. You have these classes and whatever. And then when you leave that, then you're on your own. Like, did it feel like you were vulnerable doing things on your own and finding this apartment, or were you kind of like, did you feel like you were ready for that at that point?
Yeah, kind of. It was a bit tough, but my wife helped me with that, so it was all right.
And so you stayed for 4 months in total, and then you went back to Canada.
Yep. And then I went back to Canada, and I kept going on with my university studies, and then I started coming back to China more for like some winter breaks. I think every summer break. And then as soon as I graduated, I was also right off to China again.
And what was the longest amount of time that you stayed in China, like consecutively?
A year and a half. And then at that point, I was making short trips back to Canada. So I'd stay for like a year. I'd come back to Canada like for July or something. And then I'd go back to China again.
And at this point, was your girlfriend or wife, I don't know at that time if you guys were married or not, but was she also coming to Canada to visit, to do a cultural exchange the other way?
No, she didn't come to Canada for a long time. She wasn't really interested in it at that point, and also it was very tough to get her in. But we did get married. We did it first just the the legal way, like just getting the papers and stuff, because we figured we did all the marriage thing like in the reverse, not even reverse order, just like a weird order. We did the paperwork first, and then because we're gonna help her come to Canada at least to visit, right? So we did that, and we did an application, and she made like a whole box full of papers, sent it out to the Canadian government so she could get a visa and come in.
Yeah, I think international couples do have to navigate that in a different way, right? It's not the same. Like if you're marrying another Canadian, there's nothing else at play other than the marriage, right? There's no paperwork that you need to do to get a PR, or there's no international family coming to visit. You don't have to decide what country the wedding is going to be in. You don't have to think about any of that stuff. But when you're dating or you're engaged to someone from another country, it gets complicated really quick. And some of those questions about hey, are we going to get married, come up a little bit quicker as well, because you want to be in the same country together, right? So Chinese people need a visa to visit Canada, right? As like a visitor visa.
I don't know what it is now. I think so.
But at that time, anyway, they did.
Yeah.
And what was the process for you? Was it easier for you to go to China? Is that why you did it that way?
Yeah, it's actually been easy for me to go to China. I've heard from other foreigners it isn't always easy to do it, but for me, it was always easy.
So this back and forth that you were doing, that was for like the last 10 years. Is that where the 10 years comes from in your connection with China?
No. So for 10 years, I was counting the time that I was actually in China.
Okay. So it's been longer.
So that was spread out over a long period of time.
So how long have you, when did you do that first trip, like the study abroad for those 4 months? When was that?
I think it was like 2003.
2003. Okay. So we're talking like a long time ago.
Yeah, I might be off by a year or so, but
either way, over 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been speaking Chinese for 20 years. You've had this connection to China for like 20 years.
Yeah, I've been speaking Chinese a bit for even longer than that, because when I was in high school and I first started it, then I was 15 and I'm 42 now.
Okay. So this has been a long journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like now, like how do you feel in China? Has it become a second home for you?
Yeah.
Do you feel, yeah.
Yeah, Nanjing in particular. Yeah, Nanjing, I feel like it's my second home. I got lots set up there. I'm very used to living there. I got my family there, my wife's family, and my business is located there. I have friends there. So yeah, it feels like going home when I go to Nanjing.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to live there in the future, you think? Again?
I would be fine. I would be fine with living there. Yeah. I would like to live there. I also like to live here. I would even be open to living some other places. I just can't be in all places at the same time. So, yeah.
And it's okay to divide your time up as well. I find that appealing, like, a few months here, a few months there. I think that would be a good combination for me as well. And probably many people like yourself that are a little bit more internationally minded. I think you can go to multiple countries in 1 year. Why not? That would be fun. How did your perception of China change over the last 20 years? I mean, like, I'm sure there was a lot of development over that time.
Yeah.
Like, what was the trajectory like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So China has developed a lot over those years, and it's clear to see the development from there while living there. As an example, I think there was no subway lines when I was first there in Nanjing. And then they built one, and then they just kept building and building. I don't know how many. They have a huge map of this network of subway tunnels now. I don't even know how many it is, something like 15 lines or something. And it's like that in all their infrastructure. There's more roads, way more buildings. The culture, the culture has been shifting in China as well too. People make more money, and like in general, it was on like an upward trajectory for a long time, but it hit some snags in the COVID era, right? That's when there's some more problems with the economy, and and people expressing that they are having problems too.
Like China has changed so much, right? In the last, I don't know how many years, but I feel like maybe this is my own ignorance, but I feel like a lot of Canadians don't have like a clear image of how China really is. Like people have opinions about China, sometimes negative ones, but I don't feel like people really know a lot about that country in particular. Like what are some misconceptions about the country that you hear in China, in Canada about China? Yeah,
sure. Well, if people haven't been somewhere else and experienced it, then it's natural that they won't know much about it. Like I don't know much about the Philippines, for example. But the special thing about China is that people that haven't been there will have opinions about it that are often based just on misinformation. There's a lot of China haters out there.
Yeah.
So what was your question exactly?
So like, what are some misconceptions about China that you hear in Canada?
Some misconceptions. Well, I make videos about China, short videos about them, stories from the Chinese internet and stuff. One of the most common things, people will come on there and they'll say that I'm probably paid by the Chinese government. They'll say it's propaganda or something. Like my video that came out yesterday, it was just about a guy who like quit his engineering job and started selling these Xiaobing like flatbread on the street. And some people say, "Oh, this is propaganda." I don't know what kind of propaganda this is exactly. Like,
it's not good propaganda.
He's not even making a lot of money. Like, I don't know. So they'll think that, and I don't know. Maybe some of the people posting videos about China are paid by the Chinese government. I wouldn't be surprised about that. But I don't know. People will say that about any video or any content that comes from China that is like marginally positive or neutral. Okay. And that's definitely not the case. People will think that the government is involved in all aspects of the economy and all businesses, and that there's a lot of oversight and they're really restricting you a lot. And again, that might be the case for some industries, but for a business like mine, like I have a marketing agency, it's based in Nanjing, incorporated. I mean, there's a corporation in Canada and China. That kind of business, like, I never see the government, we just pay taxes and follow the rules, and that's about it. So you're pretty free to do a lot of types of business and a lot of things in China.
I think that idea of censorship, people talk about that. I hear that a lot here. Like anytime there's any question about like how much the government is involved with what you're doing, it's like, oh, what are we, communist China? And it's like, well, I don't it's not communist to begin with, but that's something that I've learned about through doing this podcast with people in China, that like, there's a balance between the amount that the government is involved in your day-to-day life, or the amount of control they might have over citizens, and also like safety. Those are two things that like are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. And so I hear a lot about control in China, granted from people that don't really know what they're talking about, but I hear a lot about control, but I don't hear a lot about like the benefits that could bring in terms of like low crime rates and, low amounts of drugs and illegal weapons and things like that. How does that balance look for you as someone who does know about China?
I don't know a lot about the details of politics, but I can talk about my experience living there and doing business. And like, I do feel safe in China, and my wife, my kids, they feel safe there too. There is in general, Chinese people would not want to let their kids go run around the city on their own. So that's a trend that has happened both in Canada and there. Like when I was a kid, in Canada, I could go out after school and I'd run into the river valley, a huge river valley, like park system in Edmonton. I could run in there and my parents wouldn't know where I am. And I just come back later, like come back for supper, or I could be gone for a long time on some days. And it could be minus 30 Celsius. I could be out there with my friends. They don't know where I am. And in China, that used to happen more too, based on my conversations with people through my Chinese videos that I make in China. A lot of people say the same thing. So they're not really like, so feeling so safe that they let their kids go anywhere. Okay. So that's, I'm explaining this in a way that is not exactly what the like super, super pro China people would say, or how do I describe it? Okay, so there's two types of misinformation online. The loudest one that we're going to see in English is going to be the China haters. Everything China does is bad, right? But there's also a quieter type that is just like everything in China is good and there's no problems ever.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that wouldn't be true for any country. Like saying that it's all bad or it's all good isn't valid for any place in the world. There's always pros and cons. And I guess that's why I look at it as a bit of a seesaw kind of thing where it's like, you have some benefits over here and some disadvantages, and like how much individual freedoms are you willing to give up for this amount of safety, and how much safety do you get? Like it's a balance, of course. It's not like, it's not like you can have all of one or all of another. The idea that people don't let their kids kind of run around like maybe they used to, I do wonder how much of that is cultural more than anything else. I mean, I think in terms of most metrics, we're probably safer now in terms of violent crime than we ever were before. But people don't let their kids run around and maybe it's because we're connected to media in a way that we weren't before. And so we're aware of things that go on where, maybe in previous times we didn't know, there was kind of that, ignorance. Ignorance is bliss.
Well, I think it's, we have so much information from all around the world. So it makes us more anxious and more scared about things that we wouldn't ever know. I don't know if you saw a lot of videos online about sinkholes in a certain time. Have you?
Not really.
Okay. Cause I had a trend in my own social media. Maybe it was just me or some people where I saw like one video of a sinkhole with, like a hole opens up in the ground and a car falls into it. Right. And I watched that one, and then I started seeing more videos about sinkholes, and then cause the algorithm knew that I was seeing this, and I was like, oh man. Yeah. And then I started like imagining when I'm going out, like, oh, I wonder if that, that place is safe to walk on. maybe a sinkhole is going to open up, but it's an extremely rare thing in anywhere, right? I think it is anyways.
I mean, I haven't really heard of any sinkholes, so I think it's not that common. Yeah, it's like a new fear that we can unlock in our minds. When I was in university, I took communication and media studies, and one of the terms that they used in one of those classes, talking about media literacy, was the mean world syndrome, where if you consume enough news that talks about bad things happening, you'll have a skewed perception of the world to assume that it's happening to me, or it's going to happen to my kids, or it's happening more than it actually is happening. Do horrible things happen in the world? Of course they do. But those are the things that are also more desirable for viewers, things that draw attention, right? And social media is an example of that as well. You kind of need big stories to draw attention, and so it can skew your perception in that regard, I guess.
Yeah. One of the things about my videos about China, I make different videos, right? But the ones I make that are in English and are just like general interest about China, one of the things I'm happiest about with those is that I take a moderate approach to things, and I tell these stories that are often, there aren't huge things going on. Like it's not explosions and
no sinkholes.
It's not like a sinkhole swallowed a building all of a sudden. It's just like simple stories, like someone started a small business, right? Or like, someone had a bit of a problem in their life and they overcame it, et cetera, et cetera. And I can still get a lot of views for those. So I'm quite happy about that, because often the truth is found in these kind of simpler situations, especially when like talking about another culture, trying to explain another place. Like you'll find the truth is, it's a bit good, it's a bit bad. It's not that extreme most of the time. The person's daily life is not extreme. But in social media, the stuff that usually does well is that stuff that is extreme.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think I see that too with the shorts that I make for this podcast. I mean, I have 1 hour conversations with people, and there's lots of nuance to that, and there's lots of back and forth, and there's lots of discussion and reflection. And then when I have to condense that into a 1 minute short, you lose a lot of that. It's just kind of like the main points and the big takeaways and whatever. And so I think it's easier for people to digest that maybe have less time and don't want to watch the full thing, but you do, lose some of the important details along the way, right?
Right. For sure.
Yeah, it's kind of the world we live in. And I'm not like a person that wants to be critical of how things are, because I think that it is what it is, and there's, like we were talking about with, even China or any other country, there's good and bad to all kinds of stuff, social media included. So all kinds of benefits that we get from it. And there's some complications as well. So, it is what it is. But yeah, I appreciate your insights. And this has been a really fun conversation for me, Tait. Thank you for doing this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, Jared. It's nice talking to you. Nice meeting you.
Yeah. And before we wrap up, let people know how they can check out your content that you were just talking about.
Sure. So if you search Tait Lawton, then you will find me. So it's TAITLAWTON. I publish the short videos on Instagram and TikTok, and now I just started on Facebook too. Also have YouTube. The YouTube also has content about marketing as well. And then for people that speak Chinese or use Chinese social media, it's Tait Nangshuo. So, well, I can't really explain how to write that in Chinese, but Tait is like a Chinese way of writing Tait, basically writing my name with Chinese characters. And Nangshuo just means can talk.
And those videos are in Chinese?
In Chinese, yeah.
Yes. And so are you covering different events then that happen in like the West?
The Chinese videos are random things that I feel like talking about. Often it's words, sometimes it's brand names, sometimes it's Canadian culture or Chinese culture or what's going on like on the internet on like WeChat, something like that. But the biggest trend that I've had on those videos now is fans will send me very hard things to translate or things that are impossible to translate and then ask me to try to translate it.
That sounds cool.
I often... sometimes I get it right. We can say that.
I mean, you're like kind of uniquely situated between the two cultures that I think you would have an interesting perspective on kind of both sides of it. So that sounds really cool. People can check that out. I'll put like links in the description of the video that people can check out as well. And yeah, thanks again. I appreciate it.